All right, everybody, what's going on? My name is Josh Koerpel, and we are streaming live from Key West, Florida, with another episode of FireBuilders Live. Today, I have very special guest Pat Roquet on the show. Welcome, Pat.
Hey, this is going to be fun, Josh. I'm psyched.
I am psyched as well. This is going to be really good. Before we get into the process, like the magic of reconnecting with your network, if you're just listening for the first time, the way that this show works, FireBuilders Live, is that we stream Monday through Saturday at noon Eastern. We do this live. We bring on guests and experts, and we take these big ideas and we break them down into small steps, things that you can do every day and be consistent with in order to improve, because consistency is key. And today we've got Pat. Now, I tell you, wait until you hear what this woman has done, because I mean, this is going to be an incredible show. You've been featured in places like ABC's Good Morning America, Inc., the Tribune, Oprah, Cosmopolitan, and you've done all of this as a featured career expert. And what's amazing about what Pat has done is that she's no stranger to this whole virtual world. In fact, you could call her a visionary. You know, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, she saw the benefits of having a virtual career before really anyone knew about it, and pioneered online coaching and consulting with clients like on a global scale. And she still does that to this day. But through all of that, she is like the queen of reconnection. You operate a lot on LinkedIn. You're very good at not only coaching clients, but also connecting them with an incredibly vast network that you've obtained over the last number of years, and putting people in connection with one another and doing it the right way, but doing it almost with a strategy of reconnection, as opposed to just trying to build your network and find new people all the time, which is what you hear a lot on like social media these days. So I am excited for this conversation. Pat, just want to say thanks for your time and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. This is absolutely going to be something people have not heard before. And we love to rock the world and give them something to think a little differently and act a little differently. So I'm happy to be with you, Josh.
Damn straight. Well, I tell you what, the way that I like to start this off, tell everybody listening right now where you are in the world, and typical day in Pat Roquet's life. What does it look like these days?
Well, physically, I am in Wayne, New Jersey. I'm a Jersey girl at heart. You can tell the sassiness if that hasn't been clear yet. Let's see, typical day. I am a laptop life person. I've had my business 32 years. So empty nester. My daughter became a doctor a few weeks ago, starts her new life at Johns Hopkins next week or so, which is awesome.
On that.
And
yeah.
My son, my baby, is now the news director at NBC down in Myrtle Beach. So I am on that next chapter, which is so much fun. Adulting with our adult kids is really amazing, which is great. Been married 28 years. I coach people around the world. I am a keynote speaker, a corporate trainer, and career transformation coach. And I'm going to share with you why really quick. When I had a meltdown at 50, I spent my 40s in corporate America. I've been working virtually for literally 32 years. I know that's hard. I was in diapers, but I started my business in 1988 and was a virtual VP of marketing. I'd find wealthy baby boomer entrepreneurs and business professionals, and they'd let me run the business development of their empire. So I've always had that marketing, PR, growth, connecting people mindset. Spent my 40s, got my master's, and did my thesis on best practices for virtual teams in 2000 before 9/11.
That's amazing.
So,
that's amazing how much forethought that took to invest in that direction at that time.
I know.
Amazing.
So people are like, what do you mean? But obviously, it's come in handy through the 9/11, through the recession of 08, 09, and now helping people through the pandemic. So what I do now often is lead teams and individuals and help them figure out why they rock, how to shine a light on their genius, and how to really figure out who their audience is and who's waiting to serve them. So I'm on Zoom a lot, all day, every day, and coaching people individually, running a mastermind group, but really helping people understand how to build a personal brand, how to set their non-negotiable priorities. And then, so it's mindset, what matters most, right? Your strengths and being in your zone. And then it's skill set. How do you connect the dots from where you've been to where you want to be? And then tool set is where do you articulate your story, your LinkedIn and things, which you mentioned. And the most fun, important thing I do every day, I rock connections and I do virtual coffees, 3-way virtual coffees with people from not just my current life, but from my past lives, and connect my new friends and my old, and watch magic happen. And I think we're going to be talking a little bit about that today.
Just a little bit, just a little bit.
Yeah, it's fun.
But it's something that it's an interesting concept, right? Because you move through the virtual world like a tsunami sometimes, and you just try to gain friends, you try to gain a larger network, but then a lot of times you kind of forget the people that you have in your network, and what's the point? So, what's the point of going to all that effort if you're not going to stay in touch with folks? So that's what I love about it. But I'm actually curious about something. What you just said when you did your thesis with leading virtual teams way back in 2000, right? What did they teach, and how was it? Is there anything different? Like, did it change right from what they taught way back in the day to now what you're seeing?
Well, they call, sometimes you hear the Internet of Things. So that was just becoming new vernacular. And the technology, think about how different the technology was in 2000, 2001. But I recognized in my own life, for example, I would not have been a great employee sitting at a desk 9 to 5. I had a car accident when I was 23. I was working young agency hotshot, running $2.5 million of PR business at 23 years old, and had a car accident and put my head through a windshield. Pivot number 1, wasn't well enough to work. So the virtual team started because I had an advocate. My boss was so cool. And he said, "Kid, we love you. We know you're not coming back sitting at a desk. How about hang a shingle?" This is old school. You can think about this. An old guy in 1988 telling me this. "Hang a shingle, kid, and I'll feed you work because we love what you do and our clients love you. And I know you're not looking to do this full time at a desk. So why don't we just do that?" And back then, they weren't allowed to touch clients under $100,000. So picture me in 1988 saying, "Yeah, I'll take your clients that are $90,000. I was a gold mine. So he literally probably paid my mortgage for the first 8 years of my business. And it was perfect because he never had to say no to people who needed help but might not have been that like monster Pan Am, Airbus, Amtrak, major brands type of thing. So it was a good fit. And really just having ambassadors and having people who know, like, and trust you, and letting them help you nurture them and you together made all the difference. So the technology has changed, but when you think about the carbon footprint, the reduction in that, the real estate impact, the giving people their time back. Do you know if you commute an hour and a half a day, like many of us did, and you go to a remote thing, you actually get back 2 weeks of your life every year?
No, I didn't know that. If you add
Yeah,
it all
you
up,
do.
that's what you get?
So I know all the data, all the math, the tactics, the tools, but I think the one thing that is still the most common is that when you focus on becoming a stellar virtual team leader, team member, or company supporting that, your internal process, everything works better because you really have to refine how you communicate. There's no paper. There's no stub stuffed in a drawer. There's no passing folders around. All of those things that we used to do back, like my old agency days, I worked for Ogilvy, Common Health and stuff. All those processes are now streamlined. It eliminates leaky buckets and slippage, and it keeps a team consistent, and you're able to communicate around the world. So being better at this virtual world, even back then, meant that your local folks were better as well. Everybody felt connected. Nobody was the orphan left out, because if you weren't at corporate headquarters, right, even if you work for a company with branches all over the country or the world, the people in corporate headquarters had the inside track.
Yeah, and everybody else
But
was just on the outskirts, And
yeah,
so,
so I teach this as a course. Sometimes it's called Rock the Virtual Water Cooler, right? In corporate sense, to help people understand from the company side, how do you keep everybody engaged? So some of the needs have been really similar. It's just the demand and the realization, oh crap, we need to do this now, has
Yeah.
gotten extremely severe. It's like the flag went up and all of a sudden it's the greatest idea since sliced bread. But people have been doing it a really long time. So there's definitely tips and tools and ways to streamline what you do. But the biggest challenge is about people feeling isolated or disconnected.
Yeah. I can
And
imagine that.
that's the problem I realized I can help them solve. So I'm happy we're talking about it.
Yeah, well, I think the virtual coffee idea is a great idea, right? Because of course, like as somebody that is in, your type of position, you must be asked all the time, "Hey, I've got an idea, I've got, something I just want to run by you. Let's grab a coffee." And now you say, "No, stay 6 feet away from me. Like I can't do this." But let's do something virtual. But it's also how you approach it, and that's what I want to kind of get into a little bit is
Hmm.
is is the idea of not wanting to do this but not wanting to waste people's time, like having a specific focus. So I'm curious, how have you refined this idea over the years?
Well, first of all, it felt like common sense to me, and then I realized it wasn't common sense to everybody else. So that was kind of fun. Um, People are looking for a way to reach out without feeling icky or salesy, without feeling like they're asking for too much. A lot of people don't know what to say, or they think, why would somebody that important like Josh want to actually take time with me? Okay, so we've got a lot of monkey mind, a lot of these ideas in our head. Um, or they won't remember me. That's another big one. The New York Times did an article not too long ago, and it talked about former friends. And I really hated that language of former friends, because just because you and I might not have spoken for 5 years doesn't mean we couldn't jump right back on and pick up
Yeah,
literally mid-sentence where we left off.
I still like you. You're not like an ex-friend.
So here, exactly, you might have been you're not someone I'm talking to every day, every week, but here's the beauty of it. When you have reconnections, it's not just the people that I'm going to be talking to all the time. Like, we're running in the same circle, we're keeping up on the same tech, we're kind of talking to a lot of the same people these days, because you and I talk a lot and we're in some groups together. So we're current. But what happens with somebody from 5, 10 years ago? I'll give you an example. I've got a new client. She's an executive MBA. She carried a bag in pharma. She used to recruit C-suite, and now she's starting a new life. She reminds me spit and image of my former head of WebMD. The woman, they could be mother, daughter, sisters, cousins, like two peas in a pod. And I turned around and reached out to my old boss, the former GM. She's now running Everyday Health. And I said, Nan, you need to meet this woman, because she is you, mini me. It's scary. And I think she's a firecracker and you'd appreciate each other. I haven't talked to Nan in 15 years. And I still reached out, and she still got back to me within 6 hours, 1 o'clock in the morning. She answered me and said, I'd love to meet her. Let's put this together. So people are very willing, more than you would believe, to reconnect and have a conversation if you put it in context and you're authentic about your why. So I've done it. I had another person, actually with the same client, but Top Gun was on. And I
Top
had a
Gun,
guy
like
who,
the show,
Tom
like the
Cruise, Top
movie.
Gun,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
on every week, right? One of those movies that has been on every week the entire pandemic.
Right.
And so I message a guy I used to work with. I'm like, Bill, Top Gun was on, thought of you, because he was a military superstar. He basically was Tom Cruise in real life, military, prior to us working together. He was my first boss and my first real job once I got my master's after age 40. And I was hired for a job I wasn't actually really good at. I was an editorial director, and I'm way too strategic and way too much of a people person. And he saw that and used to take me with him and do thought leader research, and we did amazing things. So I reach out and I'm like, Top Gun was on, front of you. I have a firecracker friend who lives in your backyard, who is a golfaholic too. I think you guys should meet. It would be fun to make connections. I haven't talked to him in 10 years. Friday afternoon, I sent the message. Monday morning, 9 o'clock, the three of us were on a three-way virtual coffee. Halfway in the 30 minutes, he's like, oh my God, I love you. You need to send me your resume. I want to send it to my boss because I think we're going to have an opening. She never asked for a job. He's like, I think we're going to have an opening in September, but I don't want to wait till September. Somebody like you is too valuable. Send me your stuff because I'm going to tell my boss about you and get you in here to just talk to us right now. Without asking for anything. All I said was firecracker, Top Gun, and golf.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it just
Human
shows.
things, human things.
Exactly. Like it just shows like people wonder how these jobs get passed from person to person and how like these positions get filled and stuff. And it's not necessarily like having the best resume. It is about who you know. It's about like just being a human and being friendly and you know, like going golfing and saying yes to opportunities like that. Well, so but what I hear from both of your examples is that you didn't just reconnect with these people. You didn't just call them up in the middle of the night and say, "Hey, what's going on? It's Pat. You remember me?" Like you actually had a reason to contact them. So I feel like, so is that really? Does that sound about right? You need to have like a purpose.
Right. So number one, we've been in groups with Chris, for example, we talk about Dream 100 or your influencer group. It's important for you to make a list of people who either you can just reconnect to thank them for something, to make them feel good about something that they've done that's impacted you even years later. To see just how about simply, how are you? How's your family? Right? Because when we first worked together, I was pregnant and your kids were babies, and now, my baby's a news director, etc. Like time flies. And I collect people. So I still am in touch with that boss from 1985. We're still friendly. I'm still in touch. Sometimes it's for a mentoring moment. I actually set up my virtual coffee system, and I will tell people or ask them if they want to reach out. Is it a personal hello? Is it a potential to collaborate? Like you and I, we did a potential to collaborate. Is it you want to hire me as a speaker or hire me as a coach? Because in my world, typically those are kind of the four buckets of where I'm communicating. You would need to figure out yours. So proactively, it's who fits those buckets? Who can I help today? It's not about being selfish. It's about being supportive. And so I get to say thank you and reconnect with someone. In the meantime, I get to bless both of them because I feel like they will both benefit. Connecting on your own is great. And in the pandemic, you have to stay visible. Out of sight and out of mind don't work. So
So
you need to
fast, you
shine a
just
light on
disappear.
yourself and keep going as a leader, right?
Yeah.
But reconnecting is better. And then using it as a three-way, that is kind of that ultimate, consummate leadership position because you're coming in with grace and ease. And I've got two people and saying, Josh, you need to meet so-and-so. They're awesome because, and I can brag about that person or brag about you in a way that you would never say about
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
You'd feel funny, but I could say it with a smile and all sincerity. And then everybody fast tracks the relationship because you have now skipped ahead to the friend zone with this person. And you know that you can be comfortable and speak freely with this person because I'm going to prep you in advance of the call. I'm going to tell you, this is one of my best friends forever. You can feel unfiltered version. Go.
Yeah, it's like you skip all the like first awkward dates,
Oh, yeah.
and you just go right to getting to know this person, and getting to know. And here, by the way, I want to put something up that Amber put up here. One of the comments, she said, "Yeah, I totally agree with this, Pat. I like to say it's not actually who you know, but who knows you. Meaning maintaining relationships is an art form that is definitely needed." And yeah, what do you think?
It's so true. And people actually will thank you and say, I'm so glad you didn't forget about me. So in our heads, we're like, oh, they're not going to remember me. They're too busy for me. Maybe I'm a pain in the butt. I don't know. And then when you do this process and they turn around and thank you so much for not forgetting about them, you're like, bam, that's what it's all about. And I promise you feel so much better when you get off these calls. Set an intention, right? Make your list, set an intention. Let both parties know what you're hoping to accomplish. And then make sure there is a follow-up. And don't be so obnoxious. I guess that's a fair way to say it. Even if I have a client, because I'm a career coach and I often have folks who are looking for jobs or mentoring moments. I think that telling someone, I'd love to share, if you could share a mentoring moment, perhaps about your rearview mirror or insight onto your company culture. I would never call up someone and invite someone and say, they need a job, can you help them? Because that feels really gross and icky and puts pressure.
Yeah, that's like heavy.
Doesn't
That's
that make
like
them feel
heavy,
uncomfortable?
especially if you haven't spoke with them in so long, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
hey, yeah,
But if I say, Josh, you are the masterful live streamer, you're very comfortable, you've been so supportive, and I've got someone who is on a journey, and I think they'd really shine in that light. And perhaps if we would be able to just do a virtual coffee, I think you might find them interesting as a potential guest down the road, and they might learn a little bit from you. It might just be fun. Could you spare 20 minutes to do a virtual coffee? So I'm not saying you should hire them. I'm not saying you need to send them here and there. I'm not asking you for more than the amount of time it literally takes. This one says, actually, I can. I have to get coffee mugs that say you rock, don't you think? That's next. That or masks. I'll do
yeah,
that
right.
too. But put it in context and just the amount of time it would take. You're going to be having your coffee anyway. Have that little chit chat and then know that next step. So any of the people that I bring in to introduce to someone, they know clearly that they should have a gracious attitude about themselves, that they should be receptive in how they listen in the conversation, not just speak. Don't be greedy. Be generous to them. So my people will always say, how can I support you, Josh? Like always, always. And there will be a gracious next step. Can I share something? Even Annie, the one I was just saying, she was sharing with Josh, with Bill, the ring light that we used because his lighting was bad. We did the three-way call and we both looked good because I've trained her on how to do the lighting, and his lighting was all off. She's like, Bill, I'm going to send you a link. You need to go spend $20 and get this light because it'll help your virtual
Yeah,
chat so
like
much.
a gesture of good faith at the beginning, like an
It
offering.
it could be an article, it could be a link to a resource. Oh, and for her, she's going to invite us both to go down and golf. So that was really cool.
That's
That
awesome.
always works.
Yeah, that's so. It sounds like it's just setting. It's about setting the right expectation. Like
Mm-hmm.
you have to set an expectation for the call, but you don't want it to feel so heavy on the person, like all that pressure to do something. But you want to
Right.
set the expectation that, hey, this is going to be fun. It's going to probably be worth your time. Like, let's do it and find out, right? Let's get a little crazy and make it happen. And if anything, it's going to be exciting. So
Yeah, and it's funny because I found the three-way virtual coffee almost by accident because I wanted to connect two people that I care a lot about. And I realized that one is so busy that the chances of that person having enough time to give me an appointment and my friend an appointment were, that was asking for a lot. So
I
I
mean,
said,
like
you know what if we
individually,
just,
like
yeah, two
yeah,
separate appointments. So I said, what if I just do this and invite the other? They both knew, right? And I do the introduction on LinkedIn because I live on LinkedIn, obviously. So they can each look at each other's background there in advance so they can get context around the person and their background. And it just moved everything forward so much faster. But I get to reconnect with my old friend or mentor. And here's why: when you reconnect, right? Each of you has respectively grown your circle of friends and influencers. You've been doing other things separately. You've learned a lot. So you've got wins to share, or you've got resources to share, or you've got failures that we can learn from too. All of those things we all have. So that's the joy of coming back together with people who are not in that every day. I don't need to know what you had for dinner last night because we just talked last week, but how about touching base with someone who's had such an impact, even just to say thank you and say, you know what? I reach out to my old boss who taught me do once, use many. He was a genius at being systematic with what you do and realizing if someone needed this help, other people may need it. Brilliant with it. I say that every month, every week, maybe every day. And so just to reach back out and say, you know what? You really might have thought that was such a minimal thing you said, but I think about you all the time and I remember it and it's been so helpful. So thank you for the mentoring you gave me back then. It's come in handy every single day.
And I feel like if anybody is really, if they get sort of embarrassed or think that it's just a little bit weird to send a message out of the blue like that, think about, like, put yourself in their shoes. How good would you feel if somebody from your past just reached out and said, hey, you know, this one seemingly inconsequential thing that you said, right, really had an impact on my life. I just wanted to say thank you. Of course, you're gonna be impressed. You're gonna be flattered, most likely, and you're gonna say, "What do you do? You know, what are you doing these days? Like, how, you know, it's great to reconnect. How can we help each other?" Of course, you're gonna do that. So I think that's a beautiful thing.
And the other thing too is we'll do that to invite people. I'm about to launch my own live stream. I'm applying for LinkedIn Live, and I'm going to start a podcast in between. So it could be I'm gathering ideas and getting ready to create some more content. I'd love to share your genius with the world because you helped me in so many ways, or XYZ. So that's a trick I used to use when I was a publicist. I used to go to the editors and say, I'm working on a content piece. Can I ask you these 3 questions? To get into the editors, and basically they were telling me how to pitch them
That's sneaky.
without me
I love
asking
it.
or pitching them. Oh, it was fabulous. This process works. It's worked my whole life. I've just figured out now that calling it rocking your reconnections is just a way to frame it so that in this pandemic and even beyond, out of sight will never equal out of mind. There's a really smart, easy, fun way to build back your circle, to widen the circle, and to create a great tsunami of impact for people that you care about. And isn't that really fundamentally what we're all trying to do here as best we can? The
Agreed.
money comes. The
Yeah.
money comes. So it's not a dollar transactional conversation. That's what it's not. It's just like if you ran into someone at a coffee shop or at a networking event, you're not supposed to monopolize their time. You're supposed to have a few nice minutes of conversation and enough to see if you're both interested in having a specific conversation later on,
Yep. Yep. I love that.
right?
I love that.
Yeah.
And so okay, so perfect segue right into the first question that I love to ask guests on this show, which
hmm
is, if you could suggest that people do one thing, I know that we've kind of covered bits and pieces of this, but
hmm
just to reiterate, one thing, how do people start? How would you start teaching this reconnection skill to, say, you know, like I always like to say, a kid? If you were teaching an 8-year-old how to do this, where would you start teaching them? What would be the thing for you?
It's funny because the first thing that I start with my day every day is gratitude. When you're thankful for what is and you're grateful for I almost died last year. I think you know that I was really, really sick. I had blood clots and almost died. And I mean, last rites almost died. It was a bad scene. So I'm grateful every day, truly. And when you live in a place of gratitude and realize how many people have blessed you by, they might have brought a pot of soup over to your house. They might have helped you solve some of your tech problems. They might have given you a break in your career. We all need that person who's going to be that advocate who can bless us. And it's really a hard thing to identify and ask for, but think about how many people have blessed you in your days, personally or professionally. If you could spend at least 5 minutes a day thanking a minimum of one person a day for somehow how they've touched your life or blessed you, just acknowledging another human being and thanking them, or a LinkedIn recommendation in my world is a beautiful way to do that. I have 78 or some silly number of recommendations. So when someone new wants to know how do I work with Pat, they can look at that and feel by the first 1, 2, 3, 5 dozen people, they'll get a good sense. If you say thank you to one person every day, and especially if you can do it in a public venue, give them a
Yeah.
review, send them a note, drop them. I've got a client who has these little cards and she hands them to you when she sees you just to make you feel better. A smile, an invitation to be a guest on the show. There's easy ways to bless people and thank them. And I think it's as simple as that as step one.
Well, I love that because it serves two key purposes in my mind. The first is for you to start to feel better about your own life, like, you know, recognizing and articulating what you're grateful for so that you can just live a happier life. You know, you can live in that space of gratitude. But then the second is that gratitude, the stuff that you come up with ends up being the ammunition to reach out to people. That's what you say. You don't have to come up with some really well articulated and crafted sort of message. No, you just tell them, hey, I'm really grateful for what you did back in the day. It stuck with me. Like, just wanted to say that. That's it. That's all. Elvis agrees, apparently. So so that's
Yeah.
what I love, that it serves those two purposes really well, beautifully.
And it's as basic a human function. And when you live in a place of gratitude, you're clearer on why people thank you for what you do. Okay. And so part of understanding your strength, and I'm getting into the career coach mindset side of it, but when you start to stop and get quiet with yourself and thank others for where they've blessed you and listen with your heart to why others thank you, you will start to see your zone of genius. People often overlook their strengths. They don't stop and take the time to reflect on it. So they hunger for this and they chase that. And when you stop and slow down and realize the ways you've really touched other people and why they thank you, it's part of your path of where you should be living in your zone of genius. It's how, if you honor that and navigate that way. And it's funny because my husband, who's a CFO, CPA, like we think and act very, very differently. I've been married 28 years, mind you. And even to this day, if you ask him what's the best part of me, he says, nobody rocks a room like my wife. She can command attention and loves connecting with people. And they love
That's
connecting
awesome.
with her. He's always said that. Always, always, always. And so I actually fired a coach because 2 years ago, we started talking about this very same topic. And she's like, well, what do you want to share with people? What do you do naturally? I said, my husband says nobody. He said, nobody rocks a room like me. I love connecting people and helping them each be better. And she said, oh, that's not good enough. That's not a big enough win. And I'm thinking, really? I have to tell you, it's changed my life. And I think it's blessed a lot of other people. And so it's really funny that now this topic has taken off. And I just mentioned to you earlier, I'm going to be speaking for women in tech in Hollywood and teaching all the Hollywood studio executives and all of their teams exactly what you and I are talking about, reconnecting. And why? Because the world is changing. A lot of them are furloughed. They're trying to figure it all out. Why would you not lean into people that already know, like, and trust you to give you a mentoring moment, to say thank you to them, to just let them know you care about them? It's a beautiful thing.
It is a beautiful thing, and by the way, congratulations on that new position, because that is impressive for sure. And I'm not
Pretty fun.
surprised, right? Like, you're right. A lot of them are furloughed. Like, the entire Hollywood scene is changing. The way, right? So very much, if you're listening, I liken it to, if you've ever done anything in e-commerce, or if you're trying selling a product or service, it it is hard to get new customers. It's much easier, of course, to convert and to get repeat orders from existing customers that already know your stuff and love you, and and want to
Hmm.
give you a big hug when they see it, that kind of thing. So it's the same thing with your network. Like, why make it harder for yourself? You know an amazing group of people already. And you know what's funny, actually, along this topic, right? People ask me on this show, because we're almost at 70 episodes, which is crazy to me. But right, but people ask me all the time, how do you even get people on this show? Like, I don't even know 70 people, let alone like 70 people that can come onto a show and teach something. And I would always tell them, like, oh, you do. You 100% do. It's just that you've forgotten about some of them. You've overlooked some of them. It's only until you sit down and start listing the people that you know that they come out of the woodwork and everybody wants to support. So anyway, I feel like it's very similar.
And the other part of it too, though, Josh, is that sometimes it's good to give an update because you're doing more of what you already done. But with so many people either having had a career pivot or now thinking about a career pivot, here's a stat: 80% of the jobs that people will have in the year 2030, 10 years from now, do not exist yet. 80% of the jobs in 2030 do not exist yet.
Like, what do they
So,
predict is going to be one of those jobs?
well, think about, let's go backwards. How about we'll start this way? We'll go backwards. The way of the telephone operator. Imagine you used to have to dial a rotary phone and get a live person and say, "Hi, can you help me find so and so?" That was real. You were also changing the dial on your black and white TV. You had to get out of your chair. There was 5 channels. I'm dating myself, but it'll be a lot to do with customer service, with innovation, with leadership kinds of things. I mean, robotics and artificial intelligence, AI, are going to take over a lot, but that's not going to eliminate the people need for a lot of things. But we're going to have to show our agile learning and our flexibility and our leadership. And so a lot of what I'm using these virtual coffees for now is, many of the people knew me in my pharma days. They knew me as a colleague helping them with multi-million-dollar, multi-year, multi-channel digital strategy, how to take their drug or brand and how to impact lives, whether the medical professionals or the patients or the consumers waiting on the other side. So when I tell them that I've had my own career pivot and now I'm helping all my pharma friends and other professionals and executives figure out their next chapter, because you deserve to rock your career and your life without selling your soul or losing your mind. And then they say, "Oh, you know me. You hear what's going on inside my head," because that was a very tough industry. And I had a lot of amazing, wonderful, brilliant, talented people who got bumped, who lost their jobs, who got fired. I got fired more than once. Who the hell thought I'd ever be a career coach? Because sometimes the better you do, the faster you got fired because the company didn't want to pay the commission on a
That's
$2.5
so,
million sale.
yeah, you're right. Like, that's so crazy to think about, but like, success actually impedes you from moving forward.
In corporate America, sometimes it does. Or I had Roche. I went from no business to one brand. I had 8 brands. It was going great. They were 10 minutes from my house. They didn't like a lot of meetings. It was beautiful. And then Genentech, they merged and they moved to San Francisco. And WebMD said, "Oh, well, we'll just take your book of business and hand it to someone in San Francisco." And I was like, "Wait a minute. Have you heard of an airplane and a telephone and a computer? My clients love me. I don't need to be there. I can go there every month if I needed to." But that's not how they thought, and I lost my job. It's hard to make up. Blink, take it and take it away. So even now with the reconnecting, sharing your view of the world and how it's evolved into what you're doing now and what you're looking for in that next chapter, that's a great conversation, because again, we've all collected new people and new experiences, and how are we applying all of that? What have we learned we like about ourselves or the things we've done? And what does that next chapter look like? That is such a fun conversation to have. And that doesn't feel like, "Oh, Josh, can you hire me for X?" It feels like, this is what lights me up. These are the things that I have learned. This is how I've seen it help other people. Who do you know? Because it's always that if not you, then who moment, right? I
Yeah.
know I sound salesy when I say that, but think about it. It might not be that you have anything to do with what I do, but maybe there's someone in your life, in your professional world or your family or friends circle, that could be blessed by you or me or whoever, right?
Yeah.
It's about, when you think about it holistically, that's the generosity. It's our obligation, I think, to show up and share our messages, first of all. So I love what you're doing with FireBuilders. I love this. This is a
Oh,
great
thank you.
format and a great outlet, and your guests have been amazing. So I'm honored to be here. But you don't know how to do it any other way. You don't know how not to teach and share. I know you, because you've helped me with things we didn't even start out talking about, but you've helped me with tech
That's
just
true.
because it's who you are, right? And I'm grateful for that. So it's our obligation to show up as our authentic self and to share generously, because people will say, "Well, why would you do these virtual coffees? And why do you give so much stuff away for free? And why do you help so many people without charging them?" I'm like, well, I charge a good price for the things that I do so that I can choose where to tithe my time. I always mentor college students. I give 2 college students a $10,000 scholarship each every year to participate in my executive level program. So they get a window into the world 20 years down the road they didn't even know existed. So you do the things you can, but that's a fun thing to talk about with someone you've worked with 10 years ago.
Oh yeah. Like,
You can
it's
invite them to be a
impressive.
mentor too. I mean, it could be those kinds of conversations. It's not transactional. It's not asking for money. It's not asking for a job. It's about sharing your life and an update and a thank you and a what can I support you with in your world? And then stop talking.
Yeah, and to let them like go to town, you know. And let me put this up too, because as you were mentioning a lot of this stuff, and I think it has a lot to do. Todd says that I have been fired twice and laid off 5 times over my 30-year career. So glad I now work for myself. And what's cool about this is that I know Todd. Todd's actually been on this show. He's a great guy, and he, it's like that scene in Fight Club, where he says, I don't want to die without any scars. Those type of hardships that you go through over that 10 years
Mm-hmm.
where you haven't connected with this person over 10 years, those types of hardships are what you can bond over. It's nothing to be ashamed of or anything like that. You work for yourself, but those are the connective experiences that you can have with somebody that just brings you a little bit closer together. I don't think I've ever really met anybody that hasn't had problems in the past like that. But if they didn't, and we connected, and they were like, "Yep, it was smooth sailing the entire time. I did nothing. Everything just came to me." Right? I'd be like, "Well, we don't have very much in common at this point," right? Because you have to
Yeah.
fight for what you want. So anyway, so I think that's a great thing
Our
to have
mess
those
becomes our
experiences.
message,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Our mess becomes our message.
Well, so what you kind of also touched on this, but I want you to paint a picture for those listening, right?
Mm-hmm.
By being gracious, practicing that gratitude, maybe reaching out to people every one day, for 30 days. In your experience, if you've never done that before and you started today, where would you
Mm-hmm.
end up after 30 days?
So that is a great question. I usually look at the world in 90-day game plans because when I had my meltdown and lost my last job, I couldn't see 5 and 10 years down the road, and I had to bring it to a bite-sized chunk. So if 30 days is your bite-sized chunk, that's fine. It just needs to be something palatable so you do it, right? So I teach in 90-day game plans because it takes a little bit of time to gather habit. But even if you said 30 days, if you reached out to someone with a gratitude, with a thank you, and invited them to a virtual coffee to reconnect, if you did that once a day, every day, or even if you said, I'm going to do 5 a week and you chunked your time. I'm big on chunking time, right? So I sit and I spend this 50 minutes out of the hour knowing I'm going to be doing my outreach for virtual coffees for the week. I give myself 10 minutes to get up, use the restroom, get water, stretch, be human, and then get back in the seat and do my next sprint. That's fine. But you will be amazed at things like it could be peace of mind. It could be a new way to have fun. I've had people, one of the women I coach is an executive in a global company, and she wanted to be more confident. So we used this outreach. She runs a global task force and had never done that before. And so instead of trying to take on this task force, which seemed enormous, and she's an introvert, she set up this virtual coffee system and invited everyone on the task force at your convenience. Let's grab a virtual coffee so I could get to know you as an individual. And then we'll be meeting together in the larger group in 2 weeks. So here's some avail. So I teach the actual system of how to physically set it up on your calendar, but I taught her how to do it. She set up her link and invited her task force. She not only got her task force rocking and rolling, and it went beautifully. People in the industry started paying attention. She got invited to be a speaker at a global keynote at an upcoming virtual conference. And then recruiters started paying attention. She's already now in the last 2 weeks gotten an interview right to the 3 decision makers immediately. We already did a call on Monday about how do I negotiate, what should I be asking for, because she wasn't looking for a job. All she started with was how do I get more confidence and how do I reach out to people on this global team when I don't know how.
Isn't it
In my
awesome?
head, ring the bell, virtual coffee. You follow me?
Yeah. Oh, it's so great, isn't it? Isn't it amazing to hear stories like that? Like
Crazy.
just to see people succeed. Those little like micro success stories. Just just love. I love hearing stuff like that.
Free resource, free tools, didn't take extra time, but everyone felt cared about. And now she's got a personal bond with each of them. So now when she's got them in a room, she understands their story, their backstory, right? You could use it with your team if you work in a company. You can use it with your volunteer group. You can use it if you're looking for a job. You can use it if you're a school teacher reaching out to the parents and say, I'll have these slots available. We can do virtual coffee and you can give me an update so I'll understand what's going on. So I use this process. I actually take it and then I've expanded it, so I'll use the similar process setting up my coaching sessions. There's a little intake form, for example. So you'll tell me what your intention is. Is there something specific you want to talk about today? Do you prefer a call or a Zoom? Right? You'll tell me those things. So now I'm busy over here, so I have a virtual coffee at 1 o'clock when we're finished here, right? So it'll show up at 10 to 1. I'll see the message. It'll remind me of exactly who I'm speaking with, the context for the conversation, what they hope to accomplish. If we're going to be on a Zoom or on a phone call, it's magic.
Yeah,
So
you
I'm
got it all
able
right
to,
there.
beautiful. And I'm present with you and your audience. And then I can take a breath and I can be present with the next conversation. And isn't that what we all crave? We want our presence is our present.
Yeah.
And so I think at the end of the day, if I can help you get more peaceful and set better boundaries and pay attention to what you want and deserve and need, and be more present with the people that you care about, whether they're from your current life or your past, those things make for a beautiful future. And that's really, you could talk about career, but at the end of the day, if you follow that human stepping stone path, you'll be happier. And when you're happier, you glow from the inside out. And when you're in that zone and living on purpose, I watch your face, Josh. You're always lit up. You're always. I know things are tough some days, and the rooster's going crazy, and all of it. But you live with purpose, and you've set yourself up for an environment where you know you're making an impact, and it shows from the inside out. Don't you wish that for all your best friends and family and colleagues and former colleagues? Like, that to me is the
Most of them.
juice. Not everybody's willing to say, oh, what do you mean I'm allowed to be happy? I have to work here and I'm allowed to, then I have fun over here. And I call BS on that personally, because I think that when you serve in a way that you know you're meant to, the days fly, you bounce out of bed in the morning. It's kind of following purpose. Again, without selling your soul or losing your mind. And that's really what the whole Rocking Connections and Reconnecting is all about. It puts a human touch back into a crazy day and a crazy week. It helps you stay grounded because those people will remind you of things about why they loved working with you. And isn't it nice to kind of be reminded of something so beautiful like that when you're all stressed out and you've got your dog barking and the doorbell ringing and there's nowhere
Yeah.
to run away from the landscaper outside the window and
Yeah.
all the
Yep.
little stresses of what happens on a day-to-day basis. So that to me is little nuggets of things that matter that can change your whole life. And it can be done in 20 minutes a day, one day at a time. It's free, it's easy, but it will change how you feel about yourself and your relationship with other people.
Well, I love it. I mean, honestly, I've loved everything about what you've just said over the past almost 50 minutes now, which has been insane because it went so quickly. But speaking of connection, just connection in general, let me know.
Yes.
Tell me how people can connect with you. I know that we put something in the video description. That's one way. Your virtual coffee. We've but how can they get in touch with you if they've got questions? They want to ask you more things. What do you got?
So I live on LinkedIn every day. I love the tools because it allows you to do video and voice messaging, not just typing messages. So my LinkedIn Messenger is open every day. I'm live on it all the time. So Pat Roquet, linkedin.com/in/my name, Pat Roquet. That's easy. And literally rockonsuccess.com/coffee is how to schedule a coffee with me. And if you want to know how to actually set the system up. I did a little super fast. It takes under 30 minutes to set up this system. So the strategy, the how-to, and physically how to use your tools, set it up, create the link so you can speak to people and invite them. So that's rockonsuccess.com/connections. Easy peasy.
Easy.
People are
So
like, I know how
awesome.
to network, but this is not networking. This is networking on steroids in a way that will really make a difference, make your life better.
Hell yes. Well,
Hell to the ass.
yeah, that's right. But this was so fantastic, Pat. I just can't thank you enough for taking the time explaining a lot of this stuff. Let me just show you. Todd says just sent Pat a LinkedIn invite. So there
Cool.
you go. So
Excellent.
you can check that out after the show. I encourage everybody listening to do that very thing because Pat is somebody that you really want to know. And again, Pat, this has just been amazing. So thank you so much.
You're awesome. Anything I can ever do to help you or anybody in your circle, just let me know. That's what we're here for. It's what makes the world go around. So thank you for your time. Thank you for all you do and for leading the way. You're awesome, Josh.
Well, thank you. Thank you for those kind words. I appreciate it. And guys, that's it. Wrapping up another episode of FireBuilders Live. Again, it's Pat and Josh. We're streaming live. We stream FireBuilders Live every day, Monday through Saturday at noon Eastern. So check us out. Thanks again to Pat, and we will see you guys later. Adios.
You rock. Thanks, Josh.
See ya.